Mic check, mic check, mic check. There we are. Aha. You do an update to OBS and it forgets every damn thing every time. It'll remember all your little arrangements for images, for scenes and stuff, but it'll forget all your camera settings, all your audio settings, and then you just have to go in and reapply it to like every scene. It's just so maddening. You get what you pay for. Anyway, this is Lore Equals Gameplay, episode 9. If you are hanging out with me in chat, I saw North End Trooper in there. Appreciate you coming in and hanging out. We're going to get started here in a second. If you're watching this later, this is the 9th episode of Lore Equals Gameplay. I mostly just do these on the Galactapedia updates, especially now where the lore that we're getting is we're not getting new fiction, and it's going to be more in game. So when they post things, it's from older jump points. Some of those I might review and talk about if I think they're particularly relevant after reading them. If there's any tidbits that I want to share with you guys. But for the most part, the newest information and the most up-to-date stuff will be the Galactapedia updates. Because when they do put these things in, especially like for star systems and what have you, in the Galactapedia, they do get updated a little bit. They're not. It's not just a copy paste from the original comp link about the star system. So I'm doing that along with using the Ark Starmap for context is a really good way to get a lay of the land for Star Citizen and sort of figure out what the themes are going to be like for the different star systems. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll transition to the other scene with the viewing window. And that way you guys can see the Galactapedia update. We're doing the January one this evening. All right, transition in 3, 2, 1. See, there we go again. It forgot. Bingo. There we are. Damn you, OBS. Curse you. All right, so yes, this is the January 2023 update. They haven't updated this, obviously, since October 2022. It's a typo. Shampasta, good evening. Hello, friend. How are you? Oh 07. Yeah, so the Ark Tayak system. Welcome to this month's Galactapedia update roundup. This month we visit the Lost Oratani system. That's a good one. There's a piece of inverse fiction out there about the Oratani system and the lost of the system. And so it's a really interesting story that most Star Citizens do not or are not aware of. So it'll be good to read about this. But yeah, this month we visit the Lost Oratani system and the Erie Tanga system, learn about 2 terraforming companies that caused major disasters, examine the historic Atlas platform, check out the cutter, and meet J. Harris Arnold, the founder of Anvil Aerospace, among other subjects. Join the Spectrum thread for any discussion or feedback. So let's... what are you guys talking about in chat? Let's see. You following me, North End Trooper? You following me? The man, the myth, the legend, bro. I could never follow your footsteps. No ad. Don't worry. I'll give it a second. We'll wait for the ads. But while we're doing that, let's go ahead and open up this full-length article on J. Harris Arnold, the famous founder of Anvil Aerospace. So, and ad should be done any second now. Oh, Shimpasta gifted 3 months of Tier 1 sub to North End Trooper. They've given 3 gifts in these sub-channels. Thank you so much, Shimpasta. Oh, you know what I just realized? I don't have my sound alerts plugged in to this group of scenes. Epic fail, tree. Epic fail. But yeah, thanks for giving those subs to North End. I really appreciate it. That yay, no more ads. Yeah. Those subs, as you're aware from looking down at the bottom of the screen and in the chat, that goes that money eventually gets donated to stackup.org. We're actually coming up on my next um, Twitch payout in the not too distant future. So we should be having that option to make another donation to Stack Up here soon. But yeah, that is what this channel is all about. We do Star Citizen lore, Star Citizen development, and gameplay, all that along with space games and co-op games for charity, specifically for StackUp.org. Yeah, hearts all around. So J. Harris Arnold, born 2742, died 2853. So he was 111 years old when he died. Was the lead designer and founder of Anvil Aerospace. Born in 2742, he was the only son of Pax Harris and Ndilimiki Arnold, however you pronounce that. Ndilimik, real estate moguls on Terra 3. He graduated from the Astronautics Laboratory within the Martian Institute of Space Technology, which is kind of like MIT in the Star Citizen universe, but the Martian Institute of Space Technology, MISTY, where he was first exposed to the works of deceased spacecraft designer Leonard Cass, or Cassie, I'm not sure how to say it, whose portfolio strongly influenced Arnold's future designs. In 2772, he founded Anvil Aerospace, so he was only 30 years old when he founded Anvil, which went on to become one of the UAE military's premier shipbuilders. Arnold insisted on personally approving every part of his vehicle's designs while he served as CEO. His policies of profit sharing with his workers. Oh, see, gosh, I think I had read this article. No, if this one is, I'm not sure if this was written somewhere else, but this is new to me. The his policies of profit sharing with his workers and fostering the talents of promising employees at Anvil led to the launch of many successful careers and made him a popular figure in the often cutthroat spacecraft manufacturing industry. He died of old age in 2853. That's really cool that he was into profit sharing and fostering sort of mentoring up and coming employees. That just makes me like him that much more. And I'm an Anvil fanboy, so that's pretty cool. So career. Arnold began his career as a junior designer at Aegis Dynamics in 2763. So 2763, so he was 21 years old when he started at Aegis, where he would eventually be assigned to assist in Project Monitor, developing the vehicle which would become the Hammerhead. A design of his was selected to be made into one of 6 prototypes, but it was not ultimately delivered to the UE Navy after it failed early flight tests. Arnold became demoralized with his job after a lack of feedback from his supervisors, especially after repeated rejections of new designs following his failed prototype. In his spare time, he began to sketch ideas for ships based on the creations of his favorite designer, Leonard Cass. Let's see. It became apparent to Arnold by 2770 that he had no path forward at Aegis. Boo. He decided to quit his position and accepted a seed loan from his parents to start his own ship manufacturing company. Oh, it must be nice to be, born rich and wealthy and all that. But at least he paid it forward, with all the profit sharing at Anvil. What a good dude. Let's see. He decided to quit his position and accepted a seed loan from his parents to start his own ship manufacturing company, which he planned to operate based on the flat organization style that was used at Cass Aerospace. Under this style of management, everyone's opinions would be given equal weight. Oh, okay, that's what that means. No matter their status, with all final decisions left to Arnold. Although this would cause a long development process, Arnold felt that worker satisfaction would lead to a stronger final product. Huh. Okay, so let's reread that, because if you listen to that and something didn't make your little ears perk up, like, wait a minute, where have I heard that before? He decided to quit his position and accepted a seed loan from his parents to start his own ship manufacturing company, which he planned to operate based on the flat organization style that was used at Cass Aerospace. Under this style of management, everyone's opinions would be given equal weight no matter their status, with all final decisions left to Arnold. Although this would cause a long development process, Arnold felt that worker satisfaction would lead to a stronger final product. Boy, that sounds an awful lot like Cloud Imperium games. A lot of very happy workers, whose input is valued and who are able to put forth ideas towards the development of Star Citizen. But ultimately, the end final say is really up to Chris Roberts. So, interesting. In 2772, construction on his new shipbuilding facility in Nova Kiev, Terra, was complete. So 2772, and he was born in 2742. So in 30 years, he started his own company. Obviously with seed money from his parents, but has a new shipbuilding facility in Nova Kiev on Terra. Arnold named the new company Anvil Aerospace in reference to former MIST professor Robert Calvin's famous assertion from his book Mechanisms of Empire that military spending fuels the furnaces of expansion and strikes the anvils of innovation. Within the first year, Arnold and his team had created a prototype fighter called the Osprey. Okay, the Osprey was a fighter, not anything similar to the Osprey that we have today. As a homage to Cass, Arnold included signature elements from Cass's ships, such as curved wings and the open circle signet in his own designs. Shimpasta, putting on tinfoil hat, takes off the top and eats the chocolate. Oh, you guys. Using connections he had made during his time at Aegis, Arnold showed the prototype to a small gathering of Navy officials. The ship proved to be a hit, and the Navy placed Anvil's first ever order. As word spread of the new manufacturer's successful entry into the military market, it caught the eye of the holding firm that owned the rights to the Cass Aerospace portfolio, which sued Arnold for copyright infringement. Facing a potentially devastating lawsuit, Arnold chose to settle the case by purchasing all of Cass Aerospace's portfolio for an undisclosed sum. What do you want to bet? Old mommy and daddy put forth all the money for that as well. Arnold released a public statement that Anvil would continue to utilize Cass's signature elements in their ships as an ode to a talented designer who died far too young. After the events of the anti-Mezzer Revolution in 2792, so let's see, that's 20 years after the construction of his production facility was finished, the UE stripped Aegis Dynamics of most of its contracts due to its strong association with the Mezzer regime. As part of the UE Navy's defensive restructure focused on protecting and serving the civilian population, Anvil Aerospace was approached by Vice Admiral Galen Wishaw of the UEN Research and Development Division, who offered Anvil a direct contract to develop a brand new ship. The result was the U-4A3 Terrapin, a design that Arnold had been working on with lead engineer Allegra Wilsing. The successful deployment of that ship in 2796 helped to make Arnold and his company an indispensable part of the UE's defense. Over the next few decades, Arnold personally supervised the development of Anvil's military ships, most notably the F-7A Hornet, which replaced the Aegis Avenger as the UE's standard frontline fighter. Blizzrad says, surprised the revolution got as far as it did, given the anti-protest rule of the Idris. Yeah, no joke. The portable war crime machine. Just have to check the text messages. My wife is on vacation. Okay. Let's see. Later life, in semi-retirement by the early 2840s. So, early 2840s when he was 100 years old, he was semi-retired, right? Yeah. God, I can't imagine being semi-retired at 100 years old. Arnold nevertheless still required that all parts of a ship's development be approved by him. On a trip to MacArthur, let's hope that CR isn't still requiring all parts of Star Citizen be approved by him when he's 100 years old, because that would be a nightmare. Everyone needs a portable war crime machine. Yeah. Not necessarily compact, but definitely portable. required that all parts of a ship's development be approved by him. On a trip to MacArthur, Killian 5, in 2850, he is reported to have been evaluating changes made to Anvil's many projects on his mobiGlas in between meetings with UEN leadership. He served as a guest lecturer at MIST in 2851 and was invited to return the following year, but he declined, citing a desire to return home to the Anvil offices in Nova Kiev. He died at his desk in 2853. At his desk. Good grief. Good grief, man. Okay, so I can't remember. Oh, let's see. Hold on one second. This is gonna bother me, so I gotta pull it up. Cause um so he was on a trip to MacArthur in 2850. Never mind. False alarm. So I was remembering at Invictus Launch Week in, I think it was 2951, not 2950. I think it was 2951 when they talked about the new research facility on MacArthur, joint research facility on MacArthur between Anvil Aerospace and UE Navy engineers, developing the next, what they call it, the like something that next innovation or whatever in ship technology. And that was what sparked the whole, Anvil's making a capital ship because it's on MacArthur. And I was like, wait, 2950, 2850. So 100 years later. But it just shows that they do, all the meetings and stuff like that between, Anvil Aerospace, between the primary military contractors and the Navy occur on MacArthur, at the headquarters. But yeah, that's pretty interesting that he died at his desk at 2853, and he was only semi-retired at the time when he was well over 100 years old. Good grief. But yeah, a couple of little interesting tidbits about J. Harris Arnold. The fact that he, despite being born rich and wealthy, he was actually a really, really nice guy. In that he had a policy of profit sharing with his employees, as well as mentoring and fostering, the talents of promising employees. And I'd love to hear more stories about, the up and comers at Anvil Aerospace who were, who went on to do great things after being fostered and mentored by J. Harris Arnold, within Anvil. So yeah, pretty cool little tidbit. Let's get on to, let's see, the more short articles. So next is the Oratani system. And let's go ahead and open that up. And let's move, we'll find it on the star map first. Alrighty. So here is the Oratani system. And if you're like, wait a minute, why doesn't he have all the jump point turned on? It's because currently there is no jump point to Oratani. And we're going to read more about that in a second. But you can see where it is in relation to the, sort of the core of the UEE, Sol, Croshaw, Davian, the where humanity really got its start. So let's go ahead and look at that article. The Oratani system. The Oratani system is a planetary system that consists of a K-type main sequence star, a mesoplanet, which means like a baby planet, microplanet, a terrestrial planet, so kind of like Earth, an ice planet, a gas dwarf, a gas giant, a dwarf planet, and an asteroid belt. So they say gas dwarf. Technically, Crusader, being a low mass gas giant, actually qualifies as a gas dwarf. So it's 10 times the size of Earth in game, the actual Earth, because planets are 1/10 scale. So that's one question that I've had is when we get actual gas giants in game, are they going to absolutely dwarf them, Crusader when we get actual gas giants? Are they actually going to be, gas giants as in terms of scale? Let's see. Discovered in 2481 via the Pharaon system. So The jump point originally was from Pharaon right here. It was immediately cleared for development by the United Nations of Earth. So way back when, before the UE, before the UPE, Turia Terraforming dispatched a team of over 2,000 workers and their families to prospecting stations in orbit around the ocean planet Oratani 2 in 2483 to kickstart the terraforming and colonization process. In 2485, so only 2 years later, the system's only known jump point suddenly collapsed. To date, no communications have since been received from the colonists, and no additional jump points to the system have been discovered, leaving the fate of those initial colonists in question. So this, when that occurred, 2485. So we're looking at 467, 68 years ago, in terms of the timeline of the verse. So a very long time ago. So you can imagine how much could have changed in 24, in 400, what did I say, 467 years? Yeah, 467 years. That's a really long time. And especially with a seed population of a couple thousand, uh, 2,000 workers and their families. You can have a pretty massive population, especially given that there was a terrestrial planet that they were in the process of terraforming. I wonder how far along the terraforming process they were in when it collapsed, as well as an asteroid belt. And they've got plenty of fuel and stuff between the gas dwarf and gas giant, and who knows what else is available on the other planets. So, an Idris size 10 Nerf gun. Can you imagine? It's got a Nerf gun with a dart with one of the little suction cups. And and it sticks to the side of like a Vanduul destroyer or something like that. They'd have to make the sound even though it's in space. So yeah, interesting stuff about the Oratani system. So let's read more about the planets of the Oratani system. So Oratani 1 is a mesoplanet in the lost Oratani system. In a close orbit around its star, it has extreme temperature differences between night and day. Before the jump point collapsed, Turia Terraforming had started construction on a temporary underground base to keep their surveyors safe from the harsh sun. Yeah, miso soup. Yes, it's where miso soup comes from, actually. If you didn't know that, it comes from mesoplanets. So we are actually in space, and we are bringing miso back to Earth for our consumption from mesoplanets. It's one of the only extraterrestrial imports that we enjoy on Earth today. So that's interesting that they mentioned that a underground base, underground facilities, folks, had been they had started construction on an underground base before the jump point collapsed. So interesting to see that they were actually surveying the planet, for resources, and then they were building an underground facility for surveying and exploiting those resources. So that's kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and get into Oratani. So here's Oratani 1. You can see that it's pretty close to the star. Here's the green band right here. So there's Oratani 2 and Oratani 3. Here's the belt, 4 and 5. All right, so let's zoom back in. And the reason it's all pixelated like this is because we don't have up-to-date information about the system, because obviously the jump point collapsed. So we're not getting future updates. Oratani 2, a potentially habitable ocean world. Oratani 2 is the second planet from the sun of the lost Oratani system, an ocean world with small land masses. Oh, okay, so it's not entirely ocean. There were small land masses on it. It was located on the system's green band and had been chosen as a prime candidate for future settlement. I wonder how much land mass was actually available. Like, how, obviously that the population, as it grew, would be able to settle those land masses and probably fill them up pretty quickly. And so maybe if we are able to get back to Oratani, we'll find settlements on those small land masses, but also, sort of like ocean platforms, Think Waterworld. That'd be kind of cool. Terea Terraforming took on the task of making the planet fit for human habitation in 2483. Thousands of workers and their families took up residence in orbital stations, so they have stations in orbit, on the condition that they would move to the planet once it was inhabitable. Early reports indicated that the results are positive and that terraformation would likely be completed ahead of schedule. Okay, but what does that schedule look like? Like, how long is the schedule? It is uncertain whether those left stranded there after the 2485 jump point collapse were ultimately able to relocate to the planet. Yeah, I wonder how close to being habitable was Oratani 2 before terraforming was started. And what was the timeline? Because we know that some terraforming projects only take several years, some take decades. But a lot of there's been a lot of advancements in terraforming technology over the centuries, and they started terraforming in 2485, so a really long time ago. So that project might have been projected to take a while, but would likely be completed ahead of schedule. So it'll be interesting to see if we are able to get back into Oratani, whether they were able to complete the terraforming process. Were the resources that they needed, in system, so that way they could complete the project and settle on the planet. So yeah, there's Oratani 2 right there. But yeah, that's really interesting to think about. If they were able to complete terraforming, and what would the planet look like after the terraforming was complete and the workers and their families were able to relocate down to the planet, or did civilization break down as we know it? And there's just derelict stations and underground facilities and stuff like that, left in the system, and maybe it'll be a mystery as to how the people died out until we have to go in and find the information, board those derelict stations and find the logs to try and piece together what happened in Oratani. That'd be a really cool mystery to solve. Oratani 3, a possibly profitable planet. All right, now we're getting into some more meat and potatoes on lore equals gameplay. Oratani 3 is the third planet from the sun of the lost Oratani system. Located just beyond the green band, it was nevertheless identified as a potential candidate for terraformation. Oh, interesting. After extensive surveys by Terea Terraforming. Pardon me. Although the company never publicly shared their findings, experts speculated that they may have found valuable resources underneath the water ice glaciers that covered most of the planet's surface. However, the only jump point of the system collapsed in 2485, and Terea's motivations remain unknown. Let's see. M Walker 300 says they're lucky a new jump point opened up from Vandal Space. Oh man, can you? How horrible would your luck have to be to be a worker and a settler for a system like Oratani, and say the jump point collapses, in 2485 or whatever it is. Yeah, 2485. And years go by, and the population is struggling to hold on and continue their work because they need to be able to settle the planet. They need to be able to make food and support the population and continue their existence. And then someone's out exploring the fringes of the system, maybe mining in the asteroid belt or getting fuel from one of the gas giants, and they find a jump point. And they go through the jump point, and they're in, maybe the jump point leads to Vendetta or Viking or something like that, and the only way to get out of Oratani is to go behind enemy lines, into Vandal space. Dear boss man, today I tender my resignation. No joke. Definitely. Yeah, that's another interesting mystery. But if it was worthwhile to try and terraform, this planet with these water ice glaciers that covered most of the surface, if it was worthwhile to try and terraform that planet so that they could settle on it, there must have been something underneath the glaciers that was worth digging up, worth finding, to go through all that work and expense. So that's really interesting to think about. Partly because if there's ice glaciers covering most of the planet's surface, and you likely have to get below the glaciers to get to whatever valuable resources are below them. That talks, if you're not aware, subsurface mining is planned for the mining gameplay. If you remember the Prospector commercial, or the Prospector in the Kraken commercial, as well as in other things, it is intended for us to be able to sort of bore down through the planet and mine minerals and stuff that are below the surface, both with vehicles and ships, but also with mining facilities that you will be building as part of settlements and outposts. So that's a really interesting hint that, if we do make it back into Oratani, that would likely have, if you're trying to figure out what's valuable on Oratani 3, you're going to have to go below these glaciers and do subsurface mining. So that's kind of cool to think about. So yeah, Oratani 3. All right, so here's the green band in here. And it's pretty far out from the green band, hence why it's covered in water ice. But apparently they were thinking that they could terraform it and it would be livable. And here's the asteroid belt even farther out. I really like that Kraken commercial. Yeah, me too. It is. So M Walker 300. Oh, and by the way, thanks for joining me. Good to see you, bud. I was at CitizenCon 2018 when that commercial, the Kraken was released, and that commercial played live on the big screen with all the surround sound. And yeah, the reaction from my fellow citizens, myself included, was yeah, it was pretty incredible. And then being able to go upstairs in the intermission and go see the 3D printed Kraken, that was just huge, absolutely huge. It was like the size of a dirt bike, practically, just not as tall. It was so cool. Alrighty, so Oratani Belt Alpha, moving our way out. The Oratani Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the Lost Oratani system. When Turia terraforming surveyors discovered that many of the asteroids were rich in nitrogen, they established numerous agricultural stations to grow food for the thousands of workers living in space stations around Oratani 2. When the only jump point collapsed in 2485, many were hopeful that these farms could help those stranded in the system survive. Man, this Galactapedia update on the on the Oratani system is just full of lore equals gameplay. The fact that there are you would be mining nitrogen from these asteroids in order to basically make fertile soil for growing crops in space. The space farming that's really cool to think about. That if we get back into Oratani, yeah, they could continue to you could import food and stuff, but to be able to go into the asteroid belt, and it mine asteroids for nitrogen, and or work on a farm, or maybe start your own farm in order to continue to support the population there, because even if they were able to terraform Oratani 2, Oratani 2, it had limited land mass, so you'd be limited on what you could grow and how much food you could grow on the planet. Blizzard says, Kraken, give Anvil LHT. Yes, absolutely. Give Anvil LHD, give Anvil LPD. If you're hanging out in chat and you haven't watched my first and so far only short form video about the Anvil LPD, go check out my YouTube, just youtube.com/@tree0311. I'm hoping that I can continue with making more short form videos. I'm still working on the script for my boarding actions video, and this next weekend, if you're not on my Discord, hop in and check it out. But in my Discord, we have events planned for this next weekend for recording B-roll footage, boarding type footage for my upcoming video that I'm working on. Northern Trooper says, we don't know what was in concept for 67 weeks, and I will post in my Discord about that because I think that one is still unannounced. Because I don't think, yeah, if I remember correctly, that didn't end up being the Galaxy. When the Galaxy, concept was released, I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely that one. And I'm pretty sure that I was like, oh, it's not. It's, there's still a chance. So fingers crossed. But yeah, that's really interesting about Oratani Belt Alpha. I don't know if I have heard too much more in the Galactapedia updates and other systems about agricultural stations. So that's really interesting to think about. Yeah, agricultural ships, agricultural stations. Aether Drift, hey, what's going on? Good evening. How are you? We are just, we're a few minutes in, 30 minutes in, and we're going over the January Galactapedia update. We read the feature full-length article on J. Harris Arnold, so make sure you check that out. Really interesting guy, very nice guy, despite being born very rich and getting sent to space Ivy League school by his family. But we're reading about the Oratani system, and the Oratani system is the one that had its jump point collapse back in 2485, only a couple years after it was discovered and terraforming was started. Yes, Shimpasta says, we also found where miso soup came from. Miso soup comes from miso planets. Yeah, so that's where we get our miso soup from. We have Banu delivering our miso soup to us here on Earth in secret. So that was what you saw on the news with all the UFOs recently. Those were our Banu ships trying to bring us miso. So if you see the price of miso going up here in the next couple of weeks, you can blame the U.S. government for that. And Walker 300, you got to watch the video, bud. You got to watch the video. I explain why. We're not going to do that on this stream, bud. I got a whole long video all about why the Liberator ain't it. Yeah, this is open members. We don't serve miso. Let's see. So let's see. Oratani Belt Alpha, Oratani 4. Oratani 4 is the fourth planet from the sun of the lost Oratani system, a gas dwarf. Its thick, expansive atmosphere is composed of hydrogen and helium. At the time of the Oratani Pharaon jump point collapse in 2485, there was a single harvesting station in orbit around the planet. It is possible that those stranded in the system may have utilized resources extracted from Oratani 4 to survive. So it sounds like they did have a harvesting station in orbit around that gas dwarf in order to get hydrogen fuel in order to be able to fuel their ships and thrusters. The question is, would they have a way to get quantum? Is there quantanium in the belt, in order for them to make quantum fuel, or are they having to slow boat it across the system because all they have is hydrogen? Or maybe did they invent some other technology in the last 400 some odd years? Yes, it is a conspiracy against miso. The government doesn't want us eating miso. So yeah, you fight the power, eat miso, all that. But yeah, so they do have gas harvesting of the gas dwarf in order to get fuel and who knows what other resources. But that's basically Oratani has everything going on, and there's a lot of really good reasons to think that if society didn't collapse and they didn't start eating each other, the settlers and workers that came to Oratani could very well still be surviving and possibly thriving, despite being cut off from the rest of humanity. So Oratani 4 is way out here. So here's the belt, Oratani Belt Alpha. Here's the gas dwarf, Oratani 4. Here's Oratani 5, way out here. Actually, before we continue, so, okay, that's interesting. So, Oratani is 37 AU. Stanton is 5. Pyro is 13. So, Oratani is almost 3 times across the size of Pyro. So if they don't have a reliable source of quantum fuel, it is a really long trek out to the outer edge of the system. Oh, okay. Oratani 6. Yeah, so everything is, clustered pretty well in here, but as you get farther out, it is way out here. The good thing is there's not really that much. Hooray! Okay, the sound alert worked. Did you guys hear it? It worked. I heard it and I saw it on my screen. Axis, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate you. That goes towards our next donation to stackup.org. And let's see, gold properties. Let's refresh that. Okay. You didn't hear it? Oh, I know why. It's because volume mixer. It's because OBS is playing into the default output, so it played into my headphones, not into the Wavelink stream. Okay, that's why. So let's see. Give me 1 second. Wavelink system. And then audio. All right, mic check. All right, my mic, that's still working. Cool. All right. Yep, that's my bad. It's because I didn't update to OBS, and of course, it forgot everything, and I forgot to reset all the stuff. But the thing showed up on the screen, so it is there. That's interesting too. Yep. Okay. Cool. It is in this scene. I'll have to go back through and make sure that that's good to go. The search for the Oratani jump point will begin in the Farron system. Yeah, that's definitely a good place to start because maybe like if that's where the original one was, maybe it could reform and it just in a different location, or but it's hard to know like where other jump points might be found because the length of a jump point, like how far it is to the next system that it's connected to, varies an awful lot.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Okay, did it work that time? Did you guys hear it? And Walker 300, thanks so much for the sub. I really appreciate you. Hooray, it worked. Yep, we're all best friends now. We're all best friends. We're eating our miso soup, giving a big old middle finger to the government. Alrighty. So, yeah, we read about Oratani 4. Okay, and where are we? Oratani 5, oldest planet in Oratani. Oratani 5 is the 5th planet from the sun of the lost Oratani system. The largest planet in the system, it is also believed to be the oldest and likely formed beyond the frost line over the course of 3 to 4 million years. Woo! Turia Terraforming had outlined plans to build a network of harvesting stations in orbit around Oratani 5, but at the time of the jump point collapse in 2485, construction had not yet begun. So this is a full-on gas giant. Yeah, I think this was the gas giant. Yep. And so they had planned to harvest it, for fuel and everything, but hadn't started construction. So maybe the fact that they had plans, outlined, maybe they were able to get to work on that in order to further expand their industrial efforts. Let's see. Aetherdrift 369 says, "Is there any lore on why point collapse? Any kind of unusual particle emissions that can be monitored?" No, there is nothing about why the jump point collapsed. We have no idea. We have no idea how jump points are formed, and we don't know why this one collapsed. It's the only known instance of a jump point collapsing, at least to humanity. Maybe the Xi'an have heard of such things since they've been in space for so dang long. But maybe they're just not sharing that information. We don't have the ability to we you can open a jump point, but a jump point you can open a jump point to go into it, but when you close it, it doesn't go away. It isn't a you close it and it's not there, and it's a it just whatever happened, the whole from one path to the other ceased to exist. But we have with our jump drives, we have the ability to essentially open it up so we can go through the wormhole. But we don't have unless somebody, I mean, that's a theory. Maybe somebody figured it out, or maybe somebody did something in order to, that accidentally closed it. We have no idea. But as far as I'm aware, there isn't any lore about any other instances of a jump point collapsing, and they've been trying to figure out why it collapsed and are no closer now than they were back then. Yeah, maybe they did it on their end, or maybe Taria terraforming. Maybe whoever the boss was over on the other side, in the Oratani system. Maybe they were like that cult leader, the doctor who is managing the terraforming in the system with the sandworm. Dang it. Pardon me. Maybe there's a a guy over there. Yeah, the Lear system. Maybe they're the project leader or something like that, had a cult of personality, and is it called Arrakis? But maybe something similar. Maybe they figured out, oh, you know what, I could close this jump point and I could turn this. I could turn the system into my own personal, empire, because this is pre-Messer. The Messers didn't come to power until the Tavaran War, and I'm pretty sure this is pre-Tavaran War. 2485. Let's see. Duplicate. Search. Tavaran War. First Tavaran War. Yeah, so this is like 60, 70 years before the first Tavaran War. So the Mezers haven't come along yet. The UPE is maybe still-ish a nice place. But so Oratani 5 is right here. So pretty far out. We also don't know where they measure the border of that 37 AU distance. It could be way out here. We don't know. So the distance from the star, out to Oratani 4 may only be a handful of AU, and then 37 could be out here. So we don't know. The star map doesn't show us scale yet. Let's see. So, Oratani 6, the last planet in the Oratani system, and then we're going to read about Taria terraforming. Oratani 6 is the sixth planet from the sun of the lost Oratani system. Located on the very outskirts of the system, the planet has an orbit that takes thousands of days to complete. Oratani 6 is largely dark red in color, caused by the presence of hydrocarbon sludge on its surface formed from simple organic compounds long exposed to ultraviolet radiation. Methane ice is visible in the areas around impact craters. Interesting. I don't think there's anything relevant to gameplay in any of that other than potentially the methane or methane harvesting. But the planet itself is probably pretty far out there in the system. Yeah, And I think that is it for the Oratani system. We're going to now read about the terraforming company that started terraforming Oratani 2 and basically laid claim to the Oratani system, as well as the guy who discovered Oratani. Let's see, Memwalker 300. Yeah, even if you Google our solar system, you'll find varying measurements depending on what is considered the boundary. So if you think about it this way, I looked this up, and I don't know anything about astronomy and astrophysics or anything like that. But on the star map, scroll out, scroll out, scroll out. So here's the Sol system. Sol is 51 AU. It is 51 of however Star Citizen and CIG measure AU. Because Stanton is 5. So Sol is 10 times the size of Stanton. It is not, 51 actual AU in, IRL. It is, 51 AU of of the scale that CIG uses. But the only thing that is in common with the 51 AU marker is what's called the Kuiper Cliff, which is basically the point out in the star system where the number of stellar objects less than 100 or more than 100, I think it's 100 kilometers in diameter, drops off like a cliff. So essentially, for all intents and purposes, it's at this point there is essentially nothing, and you're out in deep space where there is nothing. And so the Kuiper Cliff is actually at like 50 point something AU or something like that. I forget. And so that's what I think CIG uses as the gauge for where the outer edge of the system is. From one end of the Kuiper Cliff to the other on opposite sides of the system. I think that's the diameter 51 AU, for the Sol system. That's just speculation. We've never had any confirmation. I've asked Sherry Heiberg before. She's never gotten back to me. So, I'd love to get some confirmation on that. But until we have, the full access to the star map and, can actually get better measurements, because we don't really, you can't really, because of the way quantum travel works in game right now, you can't really find the edge of the system. You can't, it doesn't work that way. So, but that's the only logical correlation that I've been able to find. So let's read about Turia terraforming. Turia Terraforming was, so they're gone now, was a terraforming company most notable for winning the contract from the United Nations of Earth to spearhead development of the Oratani system. Under CEO Adriana Britannic, Turia's policy was to house their employees and their families for free under the condition that they relocate to the newly terraformed planet once work was complete. After an expansive advertising campaign, the company attracted thousands of workers to the Oratani system and began work in 2483. In 2485, amidst rumors of food shortages on the space stations and a sense of unrest among the workers at the lack of available land on Oratani 2, Britannic invited reporters to tour operations in Oratani. 2 days later, the Farron Oratani jump point suddenly collapsed, cutting everyone inside the system off from the rest of the UNE. Turia's remaining board members filed to dissolve the corporation in 2946, so 11 years after the collapse. So that's really interesting that there were rumors of food shortages on the space stations, the one, essentially probably the ones in orbit of Oratani 2, where they were doing the terraforming. And a sense of unrest among the workers about the lack of available land, because Oratani 2 is an ocean world with only small land masses. So that's really interesting, and could lend credence to, was it Axis that was saying? Yeah, of maybe Maybe someone managed to collapse the jump point intentionally. Don't know. Interesting lore to hear about that. And also it doesn't bode well for, if those rumors and such are true, it doesn't bode well for the people in Oratani who were stranded there. If they're having to grow their own food at farming stations in the belt using the nitrogen that was harvested, it could be very difficult for them to be self-sufficient, especially without a habitable planet, with food sources available and land to grow on. Maybe they built underwater dome cities. That would be cool. Yeah, who knows? With 400 and if you think about how far humanity has come in the last 467 years, think how far the survivors of the Oratani system could have come with a seed population of 30 of several of thousands of people with the technology that we had in 2485. Let's see. Mwalker 300 says it's 39 AU from the sun to Pluto, so you would think it would be 78 AU in diameter at least. So maybe the size is based off of radius then, and not diameter. I don't know. I'm just spitballing because that's what I was able to find with a little Google search. Yeah, this story has season 3 finality, 3-part written all over it. A game about going back to Oratani. Yeah, there is so much that they could do with the story of Oratani and finding the system again. Yeah, they could make algae farms on the planet if it was terraformed enough. Depending on how successful they were on terraforming, they could make algae-based food, and there'd be food rats because it doesn't taste good, but it's better than starving. Yeah, I think that eventually we will find another jump point into Oratani. They didn't throw this in there, especially with all the lore for all these planets and the way that this lore ties into gameplay elements and design things that we are aware of right now. Yeah, it isn't by accident. It's not just going to remain there on the map with us just, thinking about it and wondering. So let's read about the guy who discovered Oratani. Micah Zahir. Micah Zahir, 2460 to 2577, so lived for 117 years. Was an independent resource surveyor and landowner, most notable for discovering the Oratani system in 2481. He was only 21 years old. Born on Van, Croshaw 3, Zahir migrated to Asura, Farron 3, in 2480, 20 years old, to work as a mining scan operator. When he was unable to find employment, Zahir signed on as an escort for supply convoys. Zahir picked up a strange signal during one of these supply runs that he logged to investigate at a later time. When he returned alone to the area, he undertook a thorough search and discovered the jump point to the Oratani system. He named it after his favorite ship from the 2464 vid Blast Crater and used the reward money from the UNE to purchase real estate on Selene, Vega 3. At the time of his death in 2577, he was one of the largest landowners in the Vega system. Yeah, the survivors in Oratani, if they are able to find jump points to other systems that, we haven't found yet, because where'd it go? Oratani. There could be other systems anywhere around here probably that they could have jump points to, and they could have, we could have a rival human empire, almost smack dab in the middle of the UEE, or at least very close to the core. So that could be a really interesting way to go about it, especially with how divergent they would be after, hundreds and hundreds of years. That's an interesting thought axis. So let's go ahead and we'll close these articles about the Oratani system, and we'll move on to the Tanga system. So that's lots of interesting stuff about Oratani. If you're I highly recommend checking this out for yourself, reading it for yourself, reviewing it. You might come if you come up with other things to think about and talk about, hop in my Discord and shoot me a ping or something like that. Later on, would love to chat about it. But yeah, the Oratani system is a very interesting system, even though we don't currently have access to it. Well, in lore and in game, obviously. So, the Tanga system. So let's find Tanga. I'll just zoom out. So there's Tanga, which is connected to Odin and Bremen by medium jump points. Yep. Okay. And Tanga is 83 AU. So two quite large star systems in this, pardon me, Galactapedia update. Sorry, hiccups. So for reference, here's Odin, here's Tanga, here's Bremen, here's Nyx, Castra, Pyro, Stanton. So not terribly far away. So Tanga is an unclaimed planetary system that shares jump points with the United Empire of Earth. It consists of a young white dwarf star, 2 planets, and an asteroid belt. Astronomers speculate that before the star entered its red giant phase, 1 or more planets could have existed in the system between the asteroid belt and Tanga 1. When the star expanded in diameter, it likely destroyed any celestial bodies that orbited too closely. At the end of its red giant phase, the star collapsed into a white dwarf and expelled the picturesque planetary nebula that surrounds the system. Ooh, a nebula that surrounds the system. That'll be really interesting to see. So, let's go ahead and get into the Tanga system. 83 AU. It's a biggin. So let's zoom out. There's Tanga Belt Alpha, and then Tanga 1. And here are the 2 jump points. And here's Tanga 2, way out here. And I wonder, because you can see right here, here's this collection of almost asteroid-looking things. And I wonder if that's meant to represent something. I don't know. Yeah, it's a big system. Is the nebula nebulous? It is absolutely nebulous. I kind of wish that they had found a way to represent a nebula, on the star map. Because without being able to see the nebula, it doesn't really give you much idea of what that's like. But yeah, so a white dwarf with an asteroid belt and a couple of planets, but it's basically filled with a big old planetary nebula. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how they make that work in game. So Tanga Belt Alpha. The Tanga Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the unclaimed Tanga system. Astronomers hypothesize that its asteroids are the remains of 1 or more terrestrial planets that broke apart when the star expanded into a red giant. Since then, the star has collapsed into a white dwarf, leaving a vast empty gap between the belt and its sun. Many of the asteroids, long exposed to the heat of the white dwarf, have been sublimated into ovoid shapes. So there'll be an ovoid shape. They'll be differently shaped than the asteroids that we have now. And that's actually one thing that's interesting to think about. Let's see. So if we go to the progress tracker, so we have the Stanton asteroids that were replaced in 313 using the new organic asset workflow. And then they're also the planetary content team worked on the Sharp Angular asteroid pack. All tasks involved in creating and implementing sharp angular asteroid packs for use in the Pyro system. So they're working on building the library of different types of asteroids based off of the different star systems, and what type of asteroids you have in the star system is, influenced by how those asteroids were formed. So I don't know what they call the asteroid types that we have in Stanton right now, but we're going to have different asteroid types in the Pyro system, and they're continuing to build on that asteroid pack, so that way, we can have far more variety in our asteroid belts throughout the game as they add more and more systems. So let's see. Oh. So this is interesting because I was actually looking at this earlier because I was working on the show notes for hopefully tomorrow's episode of the Pathfinders podcast. I'm dealing with some computer issues, and I've got tech support coming by the house tomorrow to see if they can help me address it. The computer works, but it's doing things that I don't like. So hopefully they'll be done in time for me to get ready for the podcast. But if I can't get everything done tomorrow, like using my laptop, we'll push the podcast back to like Wednesday or Thursday or something. But you can see, that they're building lots of different types of asteroids in order to make the asteroid belts and asteroid fields in the verse more unique. They're not all going to be the same, but they've also worked on the tech in order to set up asteroid fields within the solar system editor. And that tech helps them make the asteroid fields as part of the spacescaping in a star system that much faster using the asset packs that they have based off what they're building. So let's go back. It doesn't say the interesting thing though, and this asteroid belt is in here, and it's apparently pretty far out from the star. Remember, this system is huge, 83 AU, so we don't know where that boundary is, but pretty far out there. But the asteroid belt is right here. So they say it's a good ways out from the star, so probably a number of AU. And here's a jump point from Bremen. Here's from Odin. We don't know how far away that is from the asteroid belt, but it could very well be a very good distance. Yeah, Jesus, make sure your kids have a bottle to pee in 83. Yeah, no joke. Especially if you're in like a Cuddy Black. But but they talk about how the asteroids have long been exposed to the heat of the white dwarf and have sublimated into ovoid shapes, but it doesn't tell you what their contents are. Only that it's hypothesized that they were made from terrestrial planets that were destroyed when the star expanded into a red giant. So we don't know what this asteroid belt contains, but being that it's made from likely made from terrestrial planets, it could contain a lot of valuable minerals and be fairly thick, considering what it's how it was formed. So it might be worthwhile to mine in there. Pardon me. Went for a good hike today, but it's very cold and windy, so it irritated the hell out of my lungs and my throat. So mining might be worthwhile in the Tanga system, but logistically, it might be very challenging. So Tanga 1. Tanga 1 is a Chthonian planet in the unclaimed Tanga system. Dense and metallic, it was once the core of a gas giant and has high gravity in spite of its relatively small size. When its sun expanded into its red giant phase, its newly close proximity to the star's surface stripped away the world's hydrogen and helium atmosphere via hydrodynamic escape. Any ice that once surrounded the core evaporated away, leaving only metal and silicates. So the question is, will it be will that be a mineable planet, or have any other value gameplay wise? Tenga 2, a sublimating spectacle. So sublimating, kind of like the asteroids after having been exposed to the heat of the white dwarf star. Tenga 2 is an ice planet in the unclaimed Tenga system and has a surface coated with thick sheets of water, ammonia, and methane ice. So various types of ice coat the surface. When it first formed, Tenga 2 orbited beyond the frost line, which shifted when its star entered its red giant phase. After the red giant collapsed into a white dwarf, its temperature spiked and Tenga 2 began to sublimate. A trail of expelled vapors follows Tenga 2 as it traverses around its sun. Okay, so apparently it's pretty warm. What does sublimate mean? Google. Sublimate, divert or modify, and it's to change the form but not the essence. Transform solid to vapor. Okay. It means turn straight from solid to gas. Aha, very interesting. Thank you for filling me in. You have right back. Well, it was just a Google search. I don't know how to change that. Oh well, another thing for another time. So the sheets of water, ammonia, and methane ice are sublimating into vapor that is being expelled as it orbits around the sun. Interesting. And so that is it for the Tenga system. So yeah, because of the logistical challenges of mining in the Tenga system, especially if you're mining Tenga Belt Alpha, I imagine, and you have to navigate a nebula in order to get through it. I imagine that there's probably some valuable stuff there, but very difficult to get to logistically because of the fuel consumption. The good thing is that the jump points are right there, and the asteroid belt is right there, but we don't know what those distances look like, and we don't know how easy it is to navigate those spaces. We don't know how the nebula affects quantum drives, if it affects it at all. That's one thing we've been waiting to find out about. The good thing is when we get the Nix system, they'll be bringing the first nebula into the game, and so we'll get information about how that pans out. But yeah, Tenga, another interesting system. Let's go ahead and close those articles. And let's read about the University of Persei. I'm going to say Persei. Or is it Persei? I don't know. Oldest university in Retor. Speaking of universities in Retor, I'm going to transition back to the other screen real quick. If you haven't seen my background from the last time, pardon me, it's a university per se. Thank you. Blizzard will be here all week. Please tip your waitress. But you can see behind me, I have the illustrious professors JL, Algrid, and Paul Shelley. And I'm currently role playing that I'm reading this Galactapedia update on a Moby Glass, on my Moby Glass or something like that, or maybe I have like an actual physical tablet or whatever in the university library where I'm reading this latest information to come from the Ark in the TAAC system. And so, yeah, I'm role playing as if they're actually university professors, esteemed professors, leaders of different colleges within the university. But I haven't decided on where I would be attending university in the Star Citizen universe. And I'll have to ask them again. They all told me what universities they would teach at if they were university professors and what the subjects were. but I forgot to write it all down just because I'm a schmuck. You need a variation of this where you are in a Whammers with the portraits on the wall, as if they're the founders, kind of like Colonel Sanders having his portrait in KFC and such. Yeah, let's get back to the viewing window. So the University of Persay is or Persay is the oldest continually operating institute of higher education in the Retor system, UEE. It is a collegiate research university made up of several semi-independent colleges and research institutes, including the University of Persay Analytical Research and Quantification Center, UPark. So UPark is sort of the UEE's version of DARPA. DARPA as being like the defense analysis and research something. Yeah, it's basically a big old research and think tank thing for the Department of Defense. It's where they develop weapons and technology for the military in the U.S. That is. As part of an agreement between the Earth government and the discoverers of the system, land on Persay, Redor 2, was explicitly reserved for public education, and the University of Persay was soon established. The school is best known for its programs in space technology, terraforming, and psychology. Interesting. Behesht Mines, famous for starting the fire on Null 2. And we went over the Null system, I think it was in the December Galactapedia update? I don't remember. The Null system is a very interesting one. I was just talking about Null and Oberon in the comments section of my, I think it's the previous Galactapedia update, lore equals gameplay video. But yeah, the Null Oberon sort of area is where I think I'm going to be spending my time in the verse, seeing as I can jump into Caliban from there, as well as other Vanduul systems, and you have a pretty decent access to Vega as well if you want civilization. So I think those are going to be really interesting hotspots with a lot of variety. So, Behesht Mines was a mining group that operated from 2237 until 2796. Wow. So that company had been around for 559 years. Yeah, 559 years. Founded in the early days of human-led space exploration, before the discovery of jump points in 2271. Oh, wow. It was one of the first corporations to gain a foothold in the Croshaw system. During the time it operated, the company came under fire multiple times for unsafe policies and disregard for environmental protection. Oh, okay. So they're like the forerunners of Hurston Dynamics, but mining. Got it. Behesht went bankrupt during the collapse of the Meser regime and sold off or abandoned its holdings. Abandoned. So, Behesht Mines was in operation for, 559 years? Yeah. Yeah, 559 years. And sold off its or abandoned its holdings. So they're underground facilities, abandoned underground facilities. Do you think we might see and find abandoned Behesht mining facilities or repurposed Behesht style mining facilities? And this is a really easy way to explain a lot of uniformity in construction for certain types of underground facilities. Just to say that, oh yeah, it was built by Behesht Mines. Kind of like what they did with stations, where these are owned by R&R, or these are former terraforming stations, by this corporation. It's not by accident, and so you will probably see, this logo, faded, in various underground locations, throughout the verse, in the not too distant future. But this is how they go about explaining why there's a good deal of uniformity. It is best known for causing the fire that still burns on Null 2 in the unclaimed Null system. Yeah. So, uh, in the Null system, keep an eye out for abandoned Behesht mines, underground facilities. Kind of cool. The Cutter, new starter ship. The Cutter is a light cargo spacecraft introduced in 2920 and manufactured by Drake Interplanetary. The most recent model debuted at the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo in 2952. Oh, so it's not a brand new ship. It's fairly new, but it's been around for 32 years. The one that we just had released to us is the most recent version. I hadn't read about that before. That's news to me. I have a Cutter. Pardon me. I could not help myself. I thought it was just an adorable little ship. But yeah, I think it's a perfect little starter. I really enjoy flying it. My only gripe is that dang waste of space to get into the bathroom. They could have just rotated the bathroom 90 degrees so that way the door faced the hallway, and you could have put like a suit locker to the left instead of having to go this way and then turn right into the bathroom. You could just go straight into the bathroom, and that space to the left could be, an armor suit locker. Yeah, it's got privacy blinds. Yep, and uh, a fan for dispelling toxic fumes. Goes straight out into space. A single seat ship with a large cargo hold, large, and minimal living quarters. It was designed as an entry level vessel for independent haulers and can be used as transportation as well as cargo transport. Cargo transport. So I imagine they're going to make it so that way you can equip it with seats for moving people. The cutter comes equipped with 2 laser repeater hardpoints and two dual missile racks. So, great little ship. Do love the cutter. All right? It's an excellent addition to the game. Titania Terraforming. Oh. Titania Terraforming was a terraforming company most notable for their failure to terraform Uriel, Oberon 2. Yeah, because we talked about, I think it was Null and Oberon in the previous one. I know we've covered them. Founded in 2333. Again, so another very old terraforming another very old corporation from way back. Founded in 2333, it was primarily contracted by larger conglomerates for piecework until it successfully placed the winning bid for the coordinates to the newly discovered Oberon to Null jump point. Since so much of their budget was spent on the contract, the company chose to offset future operating costs by selling low-price plots of land on the yet-to-be terraformed Oberon 2. Thousands of people signed on and headed to Oberon, not knowing that the neutron star at the heart of the system made terraforming unlikely at best. When Titania Terraforming failed to make the planet livable, they abandoned the people they had sold land to and immediately folded. Talk about a dick move, like the worst real estate scam ever. All these people, they didn't hop on Zillow to find out what the neighborhood was like. They just said, ooh, sweet, cheap land. I'll go live there. It'll be fine. Only to find out that there's a damn neutron star at the heart of the system that, would make terraforming damn near impossible. As well as just traversing the system in general. The Oberon system is pretty dang nasty because of that neutron star. And then when they failed to terraform the planet, the company just said, "Yeah, sorry guys, we tried our best. Good luck." And they basically folded the company and sold off the assets and such. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of really really crappy corporations in the Star Citizen universe. It's such a realistic setting, given how that works. Yeah. Make sure you check out the neighborhood before you buy real estate. Make sure you get an inspection done before you buy real estate. Don't get caught off guard. Get yourself a good realtor, somebody you trust. Don't buy a house in a system with a neutron star. Yeah, I wonder where they got that inspiration. Operation Mandrake. Oh, cool story. So there's more lore about Operation Mandrake, but this is just a little tiny summation. I highly suggest you look it up. But it's basically the only place where the Retribution has gotten to fire its weapons in anger that we know about. Operation Mandrake, also known as the Battle of Oberon, was a 2946 UE military offensive against the Vanduul. Led by Admiral Ernst Bishop of the 65th Battle Group, it took shape when the UE Navy received credible intelligence that a large group of Vanduul was preparing to launch a mass invasion. Bishop dispatched a strike team to sweep the system and engage the Vanduul as soon as they appeared. While these forces engaged the Vanduul in battle, the UEES Retribution moved into position to block potential escape routes and then proceeded to destroy the remaining Vanduul fleet, leading to a conclusive UE victory. Yeah, make sure you know who your neighbors are as well, aka the Vanduul and pirates and slavers in the Oberon system. Yeah, yikes. Yeah, they even with many years of inflation, the people, the settlers of Oberon are still trying to get back in the black on their investment. But yeah, I hope that we eventually get more details about how this battle played out with the UE Navy forces, you know, engaging the Vanduul, but not like getting overly committed, and just basically putting up enough resistance so that way the Vanduul are like, okay, it's not worth it. Let's, go back to Virgil or wherever they came from, only to turn around and make for the jump point that they came in through, and their retreat is cut off by the Retribution, which is bigger than a kingship by a long shot and is, supposed to be far better armed. It's meant to be a kingship killer. And this is like a medium clan, and there was no kingship in system. So they just absolutely smashed the Vanduul in Operation Mandrake. So pretty cool read. But this is shortly after the attack on Vega. And the Atlas platform. Last article, and then we'll be calling it an evening because I've got more research and writing to do for the next Pathfinders podcast. The Atlas platform was a mobile missile platform developed by Anvil Aerospace for the United Empire of Earth military. First introduced in 2808, been around a long time, as the first in a potential line of anti-air and anti-space vehicles to be used in ground-based engagements. Its sturdy frame and adaptable chassis proved pardon me, successful in combat. And Anvil accepted a long-term contract with the UE to develop military vehicles. After it was retired in 2821, the frame of the Atlas was used as the basis for the Ballista missile platform in 2822, and again for the Spartan armored personnel carrier in 2951. Okay, so that seems awfully quick for 2808, and then retired 13 years later. And a long-term contract? Wonder if that's meant to be 2921 and 2922. I don't know. I'll have to read more into that. I feel like those are typos. But yeah, it's a vehicle that's been around for a long time, and apparently, multiple variants, besides the ones that we know about, built off of it, and in service for quite a while. Interesting that the Spartan is so new, and literally almost 130 years after the Ballista, and they don't mention the oh gosh, what's the other one? Help me, chat. What's the name of the other Atlas with all the guns? I'm brain farting. Yeah, the Centurion, right? Duplicate, search, Centurion. Is it in there? Nope. Huh. Interesting that they've added the Ballista and the Spartan, but not the Centurion. All right. Well, that is it for the articles in the January Galactapedia update. If you're still hanging out in chat, I really appreciate that. Doesn't reflect on my grades. Yeah, we grade on a curve here, North End. But yeah, if you're still hanging out in chat, I appreciate you hanging out on the stream and chatting with me and talking about the lore and how it's going to impact and inform gameplay. The Oratani system in particular, it sure is interesting. So if you didn't catch all of it, I highly suggest you go back and read this and read the articles about the Oratani system. Check out some more of the lore surrounding the Oratani system. Pardon me. Let me know your thoughts if you're watching this later on YouTube. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, or join my Discord and be a part of the conversation. Yeah. So I had a cold, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, and I was getting over it this last week, and I've been trying to exercise and get some momentum going, and it's just like the congestion and junk has been lingering with me. It doesn't help that it's been cold and windy, and I've been running and hiking, to try and, burn some of this sympathy weight that I got from, my wife being pregnant and the birth of our son. Yeah, get rid of some of that. But yeah, that's been it for this episode. The plan is tomorrow at 9 p.m., so an hour earlier than usual, to have the next episode of the Pathfinders podcast. We'll be going over, quickly going over the roadmap roundup from last week and talking about the details that were put forth in that. And I'll be referring back to a conversation that Paul and I had with Jake earlier today in the Astropub Discord to talk about what's going on with that. And then after that, Nazareth and I are hard at work on the show notes for a Spectrum Pulse segment that we're doing called CIG's Road to 100 plus star systems. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to be talking about some things that we haven't covered in previous segments, as well as recapping things that we have talked about in previous segments, like the quantum simulation, the procedural locations tool, Rastar, that sort of stuff. And yeah, we'll be talking about that and tying a whole bunch of things together to sort of paint a picture for how Star Citizen gets, to, not 5, not 10, but 100 star systems, where they're going with it. And Blizzrad, yes, the plan is for me to be a guest on Nazareth's new show. He's got a couple of things that he's working on that he wants to be recurring. I was going to be on last night, but my parents are here visiting, and we were busy with Junior. It was a bit too early in the evening for me to make it because of dinner and all the bedtime routine. Aether Drift says, sorry if you went over this, but these are once a month, right? Sorry if it's over time. Yep, once a month for the Galactapedia update. Lore equals gameplay. I'll always cover the Galactapedia updates, but I will also, if we do get new lore, or if they re-release a lore piece that I think is particularly impactful to lore, we'll do a lore reading and we'll talk about that, especially if it relates to other aspects of the game and gameplay, sort of tie it all together. So it really just depends on what the narrative team ends up releasing. So yeah, I will keep you guys posted on Twitter and via my Discord if for some reason we have to push tomorrow's podcast back. Really just depends on how much research we can get done as far as writing up our show notes, partly on my end because I've got Dell tech support coming to my house to help me work on my computer and see if we can address some of the issues I've been having. And so if I have to work on my laptop and move that around, it might impact my productivity tomorrow. But yeah, that is the plan for tomorrow. And then again this weekend, the plan is for, I think it's Saturday and Sunday night, to do a couple sessions in the PTU where we're trying to record some B-roll footage for my boarding actions video. So if you want to be a part of that, check out that thread in my Discord under Star Citizen Discussions, and check out the events listing in the Discord. If you do volunteer and if you are a part of that, I will make sure to name drop you and give thanks at the end of the boarding actions video. It's something I want to continue to do with future videos as well, to recruit members of my community, to help me get some quality B-roll and make things a bit more interesting. What am I volunteering for? You're volunteering to jump out into space without a spacesuit on. Failed boarding attempts by North End Trooper. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to hit the hay early, and so that way I can get a good start to tomorrow and hopefully get all my notes done so Nazareth and I can talk and rehearse before the podcast and be ready for you guys. Eye twitches from the last military contract I signed. Same girl, same. You guys all have a good night. I appreciate every one of you. For the people who subbed this evening, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Again, all monetization from my Twitch and my YouTube goes directly to stackup.org. When we get the next payout from Twitch, I'll again be matching that money up to $100 with my own funds. So we have a nice round donation. Yeah, I'm going to take some NyQuil. I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and fuck this congestion bullshit. This is heinous. It's been like almost 2 weeks now. But yeah, thanks guys. I appreciate you guys. Love all your faces. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, please consider liking, subscribing, and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Have a good night, everyone. Bye now.